This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the L.A.B room.
Exclusive.
Welcome, you are in the Lab Room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 NFL Scouting Combine, day number 4. Final day of the Scouting Combine. It's been a very long process for these players participating and for all of us breaking this thing down, all the evaluators, GMs, scouts, coaches. It's been a long process for them as well. Final day of the Combine features corners and safety. So as a group, defensive backs in day number 4. I didn't break this one up into groups. I just simply broke them down into their proper positions. You got corners, you got safeties. Let's talk about day 4 here in the 2014 NFL Scouting Combine. And remember, I'm watching this, so you don't have to. So we get to the board and let's go straight to the cornerbacks. Everybody's got cornerback problems. Everybody needs cornerbacks. You won't really find any teams in the league that will turn down some good corner play. And you know what? I came into this day of the Combine with an open mind because I really didn't know what I was getting with these corners. A lot of these corners, you question their long speed. You question their ability to flip their hips. There were question marks about some of these guys. And I'll give you my sentiments about each and every single one of these players, some of the doubts that I had, some of the preconceived notions that I went into this Scouting Combine with, and what they were able to show me at the Combine and some things that they might have to work on. So you start at the top of this list with Darqueze Dennard out of Michigan State. I looked at him all year and I felt like, and they talked about this all Scouting Combine long, especially in day 4, about him needing to be a guy that presses receivers. He's not a guy you want off the ball in a bail technique or a guy that's just off the ball getting into his back pedal. He's someone you want in the face of the receiver, playing bump and run coverage, looking to be extremely sticky. He's a physical corner. So people questioned the top end speed. How was his long distance speed? How was he going to be able to get off of that bump? Okay, so you get to the line of scrimmage, you bump a guy, he beats you off of jam coverage. He beats your press. How do you make up? Do you have the makeup speed to catch up with that receiver if that receiver is a 4.47 40 guy? Can you catch up? That was the question everyone had when they came into the Combine for Darqueze Dennard. And he runs a 4.5 and some change. And it is what it is. It is what it is. I think you know what he is. Watching him in the on-field drills, it was apparent he's not as fluid an athlete as some of these other guys at the Combine, but that's okay. They talked about it during the Combine. Mike Mayock said it best. He is what he is. He's a press corner, and Deion Sanders added to that and said, look, don't ask this guy to be something that he's not. Now, I thought Deion also made a very eloquent point. Teams are going to challenge him. They're going to put stacks on his side, meaning bunch formations that force you to play off coverage. You can't jam receivers when there are 3 receivers on one side. And so they're going to force him to have to play off coverage sometimes. How will he react to that? He's going to need some tutelage at the next level, but he's got all the physical gifts necessary. He's just not a long speed guy, but that's never stopped other players from becoming and blossoming into great corners in this league. You just got to know your boundaries and play your position and play it well. I think he's going to do that. I thought he did a wonderful job of going out there and competing. I don't feel any worse about him than I did coming in to this Combine. I thought he played well. I thought he solidified his spot as a corner that's going to go from anywhere into the first round, into the second round. He won't see the third round. And so Darqueze Dennard, I think, solidified his spot as a guy that's going to come off the board very highly in this draft. You look at Justin Gilbert out of Oklahoma State. To me, by far the best corner in this draft. You get everything, the total package with this guy. Over 6 feet tall, long arms, extremely athletic, ran the fastest time of any corner in this draft, tied with another corner that's on this list that I'll talk about a little bit later. But he ran a 4.3840, so he's blazing fast. He can move, and he's a guy that I feel like is really ready for the next level. I think he's got all the things you're looking for: ball skills, fluid hips, sweet feet, the ability to make a play on the football, look back for the football, locate the football, and he brings some extra added value in the form of a returns guy. So you get a lot in the package that is Justin Gilbert. He sold me, okay? There were some things I needed to see. Actually, how fast are you? Can you catch the football? Are your hips fluid? Are you a loose athlete? Check, 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 check. Number 1 overall corner in this draft. He'll be the first one off the board. For me, Justin Gilbert is the best thing smoking in this draft at the cornerback position. Solidified that at the combine in day number 4. How about Kyle Fuller from Virginia Tech? Here's an interesting prospect. Mike Mayock has him 3rd rated overall on his board of corners. And I tell you what, I was impressed with Kyle Fuller. And he's a big, long kid, silky smooth athlete. The only thing that I had an issue with him, because he caught the football well, he changed directions, probably the best of any corner on the board that I have right here. He did everything you're looking for from a guy that's going to be potentially a 1st round pick, early 2nd round pick. The only thing that I question with Fuller is, can he get lower? He's a tall guy. I need him to get lower in his back pedal. He's up way too high, and it's consistent. There was never a time in any of the drills where he actually got into a low back pedal stance. And when you're up high backpedaling, you can get out of control very easily. And so he has to adjust that. I think when they get their hands on him at the next level, that's the first thing they're going to try to work on him with, is his back pedal. That's got to be a lot more lower center of gravity. It's got to be something that's a lot more tight, because right now it's a loose back pedal, and not in a good way. A lot of times you want your back pedal to be nice, loose, free, and easy. With him, it's loose, free, and easy from a standpoint of the fluidity in his movements. But in terms of him being up too high, it has to come down a little bit for him to be the complete player that I think he has the potential to be. But he checked off all the boxes, okay? He showed me everything that I was looking for, and then some. I was highly, highly impressed with Kyle Fuller, especially the way he snatched the football out of the air. And you know, those Vitek corners, you get them, they're going to be tough, they're going to tackle, and they're going to be sound in their defensive principles. So I love Kyle Fuller and all the things that he brings to the table. Just have to work on that back pedal, but I'm sold. I'm sold on Kyle Fuller as a guy that can come in and contribute and be a really high caliber athlete at the next level in the National Football League. You look at Jason Verrett. Here's a guy that I was ultra impressed with at the combine. Out of TCU, the only knock on him, he's 5'9". So right there, that tells you most likely teams are going to try to bump him inside as a slot corner, but the guy can play outside as well. Look, there are examples of guys going out wide and playing and being successful for years. Brent Grimes has done it. Antoine Winfield done it for years. So look, you can go outside, be a smallish guy, and succeed. He's got all the tools necessary. He tackles. He looks for the football. He can blitz. He does everything you're looking for in a cornerback. And not to mention 4.39 40 speed. So he's running. He's gunning. I like Mr. Verrett out of TCU. And to me, I think he's a first-round corner. I think with his effort in this combine in day 4, he solidified himself as a first-round corner. I just don't see this guy lasting until the 2nd round. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he was fluid. I thought he moved well. I thought he caught the football well. I thought he did everything you want a cornerback to do. He did it at an exceptionally high level. I think he's going to be a first-round pick, is Jason Verrett. How about Bradley Roby out of Ohio State? Fast guy. Can run. Ran a sub 540. He was moving out there, and he did some good in this combine. Thought he ran well. Thought he moved his hips well. Sometimes a little stiff, but I thought for the most part he moved well, he showed out well, and showed why he's going to be probably one of the top 5 corners taken off the board in this draft. He checked all the boxes. Bradley Roby is a guy that's going to be off the board fairly quickly in this next draft. Thought he went out and performed well at the Combine. How about some other guys? Guys that you probably haven't heard a lot about, but some longer athletic guys. Let's start with Phillip Gaines. To me, might be the steal of this draft at the cornerback position. Here we are talking about a guy over 6 feet, 6'1" and 3/8 out of Rice. Okay, so smaller school, still a Division I school, but you don't know a lot about a guy like Phillip Gaines, especially when you play at a school like Rice. But Phillip Gaines came out, and to me, after the upper echelon, your Gilberts, your Verretts, your Fullers, and I would argue that he was even smoother than Kyle Fuller. He was one of the smoothest athletes out there. I mean, here's a guy, tied Justin Gilbert, and I talked about Gilbert running the fastest 40 of the corners. Well, here's his co-fastest time in the 40 at the cornerback position in Gaines, who ran a 4.3840. Keep in mind, we're talking about a 6'1" athlete here, about $195. He can move, long arms, and he was fluid. Had the best, and this is no understatement, best back pedal at the Combine. It was fluid, it was low, it was easy for him to transition out of it, flip the hips, or stop and change directions. His back pedal was a thing of beauty. And so I think that right now his grade, and I'm hearing this from multiple outlets, his grade is about a 6th-round grade. After what I saw at the Combine, I wouldn't be surprised if some teams saw this guy and said, hey, if we get him in here with our coaching staff, this guy could be a starter somewhere in the middle of his rookie season. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I was extremely impressed with Phillip Gaines. Thought he went out and helped himself tremendously with the way he performed at the Combine. Next guy up, Stanley John Bautiste, out of Nebraska, 6'2" corner, 215 pounds. You hear that, you're thinking, okay, this guy's probably up in people's faces, jamming them up at the line of scrimmage. And the first thing I heard Mike Mayock say is he needs to get tougher. What? At 6'2", 215, he needs to get tougher at the cornerback position? He's raw, though. Extremely raw. Just learned how to play the cornerback position. Wasn't a corner. Starting out his collegiate career, was in fact a receiver. So he's a guy that has some things to learn. Has a lot of things to learn about playing the cornerback position. But trust and believe, with that height and the way that he moves, someone's going to be intrigued, someone's going to pull the trigger on him, and someone's going to try to coach this guy up into an upper echelon NFL corner. I just don't know when that's going to be, and I don't know who it's going to be. He showed some skills, he showed some flashes of athleticism, but again, at 6'2", 215, little tight sometimes, had some trouble getting in and out of breaks. That's to be expected. The taller you are, the harder it is to transition from back pedal to making a break on the football or turning the hips and running with your back toward the quarterback. So it's a little tougher for the big guys to bail sometimes. And so he's another one of those guys where he struggles in transition, but he's a big athletic guy. And someone's going to take a chance on him, draft him. And I don't think he's the guy you draft with the intentions of playing him right away. That's a guy you draft, you stash, and you work with this guy, and you polish him up, and then you put him on the field in year 2 and see if you have a finished product good enough to put on the field consistently and feel good about him playing at the highest level there is in the National Football League. So I thought he came out, performed, competed, but there's work to be done there. But he's a raw project for somebody, and I thought he came out and showed some athletic ability. Ross Cockrell, here's a guy out of Duke. Big, long corner, 6'1", can run. Thought he played well. I watched him closely in the bowl game against Texas A&M because, of course, he was going against a future first-round pick in Mike Evans, and I wanted to see how he performed. He made Mike Evans work, okay? Early in that game when A&M was struggling, He was making Mike Evans work. Now, Mike ended up getting the best of him. But he made Mike Evans work in that football game. Here's a guy that's long. I talked about the length at 6'1", long arms, can run. Sometimes he has trouble with the transition. Sometimes he has trouble locating the football. But when he does, he makes plays on the football. I like Ross Cockrell. I think he's more NFL ready than a few of these guys on this list. And I think he's battle tested. He's one of those guys, he gets beat, selective memory, comes back, is ready to compete the next time he's out on the field. So I like his toughness, mental toughness. I like his length. I like his skill set. I like the measurables that he brings to the table. Now I just want to see it all translate at the next level in the National Football League. I think he helped himself at the combine. I thought he went out, competed, and he looked good while doing so. So Ross Cockrell is a guy I think will come off the board sometime in the second round. If not in the second, definitely early third. You look at Bennett Jackson out of Notre Dame. Here's a corner that's long. Again, one of these 6'1" guys and can move. I've got mixed feelings about Bennett Jackson. I've watched a lot of Notre Dame football. He's a guy that sometimes doesn't trust his ability, doesn't find the football enough for me, and he can get grabby at times. And I don't like grabby guys. I don't like touchy-feely corners. I don't want you touching the receivers, especially after that 5-yard buffer period. I don't want you all over the receiver. That's a no-no. You're asking for a PI at the next level. He seems to be a guy that loses track of the football way too often. However, he showed a lot of athleticism at this combine, made some plays on the football, but that was very impressive. I thought he got in and out of his breaks well. Thought he was a little tight with his hips at times, but the feet look good. The ball skills look good. And I think Bennett Jackson is a guy that if he's worked on at the next level, could do some things for an NFL football team. So those are your cornerbacks in day 4 of the combine that were of note to me. We move on to the safeties, and everybody was looking for Calvin Pryor, CP out of Louisville. Here's a guy that to me is the consensus #1 safety off the board. I think a lot of people have him rated very highly, potentially a top 10 pick. And so wanted to see how he was going to time out, how he was going to run. I'm not going to lie to you, wasn't that impressed with him, okay? Didn't run a sub 4.540, and I don't know if I was expecting him to or not, but it would have been nice. When you're talking about a guy that's a top 10 pick, I was hoping he would run a sub 540, but he didn't. But that's fine, okay? That's cool. I was a little turned off by some of his mechanical-like movements, if you will. I didn't think he was that fluid as the next safety that I'm going to talk about. I thought the next safety that I'm going to talk about was a lot more fluid than this guy was, and I think probably has a little bit more range. But then again, when you look at the two, and in the NFL today, it's kind of a blurred line between free safety and strong safety. I really don't know if there's a distinction anymore between the two. But to me, if there is still a distinction, Pryor might be more of a strong safety more so than a free safety. And I looked at him in a free safety light, you know, more along the lines of that Earl Thomas mold. And when you tell me he's the #1 safety off the board, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Earl Thomas Jr. And I didn't see that in Calvin Pryor. He didn't seem as fluid an athlete to me. I saw him make some plays on the football. I saw the highlight tape. I know what he brings to the table in toughness, but I wasn't that impressed. Wasn't that impressed like I thought I was going to be when I was going into the combine. He was one of the guys that I won't say I was disappointed in, but I don't feel like I got what I was expecting, okay? Let's just leave it at that. But he checked boxes, okay? He went out, he competed, he ran. Like I said, just not as fluid an athlete as I thought he was going to be. But again, that doesn't mean he's not going to be a serviceable or even a great safety at the next level. And that doesn't mean he's not going to be the #1 safety off the board, because he probably still is going to be the first safety taken off the board when it's all said and done. But for my money, I like this guy better. Ha Clinton Dix out of Alabama. I thought he went out and performed better than Pryor, if you ask me. More fluid as an athlete, made plays on the football. They ran kind of the same. in terms of speed. I think Clinton Dix is a little faster than Calvin Pryor is. And so I feel like there's more upside. And I think that's where my distinction between the two really lies, is I think there's more upside with Clinton Dix than there is with Calvin Pryor. But to each its own. You ask me which one am I taking. If I have a top 10 pick, I'm telling you I'm taking Clinton Dix. He checked off every single one of the boxes at the combine. I thought he was very fluid in his movement. I thought he was very, very athletic. I thought he ran well. I thought he did all the drills the way you want him to, and I thought he caught the football. He had some drops, but everybody on this board had drops. Not one of these guys were clean from a catching the football perspective. So everybody had drops. I thought he made some really dynamic plays on the football. Had one catch where he stretched out like this, beautiful on the sideline. I like the upside with Clinton Dix. Give me him over Pryor in the draft. But that's just me, Louie Tee, telling you how I feel about those two top safeties. You look at the next guy on the list, Anton Exum. And here's a guy out of Virginia Tech that is listed as a corner. You look at his body type. You look at the way he moves. He is a safety. No question about it. Had some injuries at Tech, and so that kind of brought his stock down tremendously. 2 years ago, this guy was touted as probably going to be a top first-round draft pick in the draft that he came out in. Then the injury started to take effect, and he's a different type of corner now. He's a bigger guy, and I think he's a safety. I look at him, and I say safety. He's tight. There's no fluidity with his movements whatsoever. Everything is tightly wound, and he's a musclehead. And I don't like my corners to be muscleheads. I like my corners to be fluid and loose and rangy and have the ability to have some flexibility with them, some flexion. And he doesn't have flexion at all. He's tight, he's muscular, he's a safety. And I thought he went out and athletically, he's right in line with the safeties in this draft. You put him up to the corners, and he doesn't measure up. So he's a safety, and he's a guy that, if he learns the safety position, I think he could actually excel because of his experience as a cornerback. So we'll see how that works out. That's a to be continued Anton Exum out of Virginia Tech. Deon Buchanan. This is a guy that I thought went out and performed well at the combine. I thought he ran well. He looked good in the drills, turned his hips well. I thought he actually tried to high point. A lot of these guys, I get angry when they don't try to high point the football. Don't let the football drop down to you. When are you going to catch picks like that in the National Football League? If you're a safety and you're hungry and you're trying to steal something, you got to go take it. Nobody's giving you anything. And so he was high pointing the football, or at least attempting to, and he gets more brownie points from me for doing that. He caught a couple of them nice at the highest peak. And I like Dante Buchanan a lot. And there's a reason why he's on Mike Mayock's board of safeties as a top 5 safety. He's got my vote. I liked what I saw from him in the combine. He checked off all the boxes. Deon Buchanan is a top safety in this draft. You look at Victor Hampton. I thought he did himself wonders at this combine. Safety out of South Carolina, had some issues at South Carolina. This guy looks like he's going to be a menace at the next level. A small musclehead. I'm talking about 5'9" guy, a walking missile. And the thing that impressed me the most is that he looks like he can hit somebody. Deion Sanders called him a thumper. He looks like a thumper. He looks the part of a thumper for sure. But the ball skills were tremendous. And the ball stopped. It looked like a receiver with really big hands. When he put his hands up, and there was some heat on a couple of these passes, when it hit his hands, the ball stopped. There wasn't a lot of double catching and a lot of Now, of course, like everybody else, he had some drops. But when he caught the football, and he caught it more times than he didn't, the ball just stopped in his hands. And that's something that I like. And he elevated. He had some hops. And 20 reps at 2 1/4 was one of the best at the bench for the safety position. So he's coming with some pop. He can run. He's physical. And he can catch a football. Check, check, check. I like Victor Hampton. You look at Terrence Brooks out of Florida State. Quick twitch, fiber athlete, okay? But to me, very raw. I look at him, and I think there's a lot of coaching that needs to be done here. But he plays special teams. He's extremely fast. he's going to make someone's roster just off of special teams alone. But I tell you what, if someone gets with him and can get this guy to figure out the fundamentals of the safety position and not just be out there running around in space, you could have a player on your hands because the guy is extremely athletic and he can run really, really fast. And so you take that and you give him some control, because right now I just think he's chaotic. You make this guy into a controlled chaos type of football player, maybe you got a football player on your hands in the form of Terrence Brooks. Isaiah Lewis out of Michigan State, to me, too tight. I look at him, he's tight. And everything he does, it just looks like he's pressing and he's trying too hard. Nothing comes natural, nothing comes easy, and I wasn't impressed with what I saw out of him, to be frank with you. I really didn't see anything that made me say, that guy looks good. I didn't see anything. Someone is going to like him. Someone's going to like the film. Not my cup of tea. I'll leave it at that. He came out, he competed, but again, I just felt like he was tight in every single thing he did. Everything looked extremely hard for him. And so, not a huge fan of Isaiah Lewis. Look at Craig Lawson out of LSU, and he looks fat to me. He just looks fat. Like, I want him to shed a couple more pounds or turn it into muscle, and I want him to be more explosive. I look at him, and a lot of these drills, he was trying not to mess up. Cool. You know, that's fine. But I look at your body type, and then I don't see explosion, and I put the two together, and I think there's a direct correlation. And that turned me off. That was a turn off for me. I looked at him, and he looked like he had a gut, and I'm like, I don't want that guy. I don't want that guy. So he went to a big, major program at LSU, made some big plays for them. There's probably a lot more upside there than I'm giving him credit for, but I just wasn't impressed. I didn't like what I saw. I think there's some work to be done there if you're Craig Lawson. But look, he went to LSU. He started at LSU. He made plays at LSU. There's a reason he was at LSU. I'll leave it at that. So now, that was essentially day 4, wrapping up the combine. And I want to do something special here. And nobody else is doing this. So this is an In the Lab Room exclusive. All right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you my all-combine squad. All right? So for every position, I'm going to fill out my all-combine squad. So 11 players on each side of the ball, filling out a side of the football, giving you the guys. And this isn't the guys that I think are the best at their positions. I'm talking about the guys that they're the best at the combine, whether they made you take a second look and make you have to go back and watch more film on them, or if they just came out and solidified what you thought about them before they came into the combine, or if they just flat out went and balled out at the combine. Whatever the case may be, these are the guys that performed the best. Not the best at their positions. These are the guys that performed the best at the 2014 NFL Combine. So my all-combine squad reads as follows. Cornerback, A.J. McCarron. First day of the combine, he came out and he lit it up. Or excuse me, day 2 of the combine, he came out and he lit it up. I thought he threw the football the best of any quarterback there, and I didn't think it was close. He had touch on the football, anticipation, and he showed the down-the-field touch you're looking for from a guy that at their school, they don't have a great history of quarterbacks coming to the next level. He looks to be breaking that trend in A.J. McCarron. I thought he fared well. Thought he was the best at the quarterback position at the combine. Running back, Dree Archer out of Kent State. Dree Archer lit it up, 4.26 40. Was challenging Chris Johnson's 4.24 40. Came up just a little short, but in the positional drills, the speed translates. He looked fluid. He looked sharp. He caught the football. I like Dree Archer a lot, and I told you, I got my eyes on Dree Archer. I want to see where this guy ends up and how he is used, because that's a lot of speed to burn, and he's a fluid athlete, and I think that 4.26 40 translates to Sundays. So I want to see Dree Archer. He performed the best of all the backs to me at the combine. wide receivers. I got 3 of them, okay? So I'm running a 3 wide receiver set, 1 back, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, okay? Mike Evans is the first receiver out wide. He's my ex-receiver, all right? I told you how I felt about him in day 2 of the combine. I thought he was as smooth as smooth can get. I mean, he was as smooth and cool as the other side of the pillow. I mean, the guy was absolutely flawless in what he was able to put on film at the combine. He caught the ball extremely well. He ran faster than I thought he was going to run. He caught everything. He was smooth in and out of his breaks. He made everything look effortless. It looked like it was easy, like he just woke up and just caught the football and got back into the bed and went to sleep. And so he's my ex-receiver at the combine. My wide receiver at the combine, a guy that made a believer out of me, Odell Beckham Jr. I saw him at LSU. He was making plays, but again, I'm a guy that I don't believe in LSU receivers until you make me a believer. And so I said, Odell, you're lying to me. You're lying. I don't like being lied to, okay? Clowney lied to me in day 3 of the combine. Don't you lie to me, Odell. Odell said, I'm not going to lie to you. Tell you what, let me show you better than I can tell you. And he went out and he lit it up. And I said, whoo, I'm a believer. I am a believer in Odell Beckham Jr. He's my wide receiver at the combine. You look at my Z receiver, my slot guy, Brandon Cooks. And this is a guy that probably can play outside at the next level, but you put this guy in a slot and some corners are going to have some problems. This guy ran a 4.3, 340, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He lit it up, blazed it, caught everything, ran fast, was athletic, was explosive, much like Odell Beckham Jr. I was thoroughly impressed with Brandon Cooks. He's on my all-combine squad. You look at tight end. Very disappointing group. Probably the most disappointing group of all the groups that worked out at the combine because Ebron hurt himself running the 40. You had another tight end not be able to perform because he was injured in Safarian Jenkins. Then you look at a guy out of Texas Tech that was supposed to be a high production guy. He's dropping the football all over the place. So by default, AC Leonard is my tight end at the combine. Not to take anything away from AC Leonard, he ran a 4.540 flat, the best time easily of all the tight ends at the combine. But he's got some off the field issues. But I tell you what, AC Leonard out of Tennessee State has me having to go back and do more homework. This guy was recruited to go to Tennessee, had some off the field issues, had to go to Tennessee State, and I see the talent. I see why he was recruited to go to Tennessee. Now I need to go back and do my homework and figure out if this guy's legit or not. He looks the part. He looked the part at the combine. That's my tight end on my all-combine squad at the tight end position. You look at offensive tackle. Taylor Lewan out of Michigan and Greg Robinson out of Auburn. To me, the 2 athletic freaks of this position, these guys lit it up. And you can go the Matthews route if you like. Look, I'm not knocking the guy. He's just nowhere near as athletic as these 2 guys were. I was blown away by Taylor Lewan. Let me say that first and foremost. I mean, the guy lit it up. The 40 was outstanding, out of this world. The vertical was stupid. And the guy was moving like a freight train. Taylor Lewan, for me, really, really moved up draft boards with his performance at the combine. And Greg Robinson, I thought we all knew he was athletic. He just reinforced that at the combine, showed us that, hey, you too can have yourself an athletic freak at the tackle position. If you draft me in the top 10, he's going in the top 10. He sewed that up with his performance at the combine. He's my other tackle. You look at guards, David Yankee and Xavier Su'a-Filo. And for me, Yankee didn't really wow me, didn't really impress me all that much. He did exactly what I thought he was going to do, and that's be a mauler. He's not a fast guy, overly athletic, but you put him in the right system, he's going to go out and be consistent every single week, and I saw that at the combine. So there was no knocks on him. It was all good for David Yankee, and I think he solidified himself as probably the first guard off the board in the draft. You look at Xavier Su'a-Filo, and I thought he came out and showed the athleticism necessary to be in one of these zone blocking schemes. He can get to the next level, make linebackers and safeties and corners pay. He's a guy that you want out in front of a screen. He showed the athleticism and the ability to move his feet, turn his hips, do all the things you want a guy to be athletically wise on an offensive line. That's why Xavier Su'a-Filo is my other guard on my all-combine squad. And to wrap up my offensive side of the football, center Gabe Ikard out of Oklahoma. To me, he did the best job at the combine. Athletically, he looked smooth. To me, he did the best, and I thought he rose his stock the most of all the centers at the draft. He looked really good, and it's going to be hard for teams to pass up on him if they need a center. So now we move to the other side of the ball. We're talking defense now, and I'm going with a 4-3 defensive look. I'm going with the customary look because if I went 3-4 wise, then I would probably be leaving out some defensive ends that need to be up here, and then I would have to substitute them with guys that are better suited for a 3-4 defense, that are more 5 techniques like a Rashid Hegman. And so I'm going with the 4-3 look, the traditional 4-3. And so you start with your 2 defensive ends. For me, Coney Ealy and Jonathan Newsome lit it up at the combine. Coney Ealy, he didn't really do anything that I didn't expect him to do, but he solidified that, hey, I'm one of the best, if not the best, defensive end, and I'm going to be the first defensive end off the board in this draft. And so Coney Ealy, for me, solidified his spot atop the defensive ends in this draft. And then Jonathan Newsome came off the pace. Here's a guy out of Ball State that I wasn't expecting a lot out of, but when he ran the drills in the conversion drills, showing his ability to take his hand out the dirt and potentially move the linebacker at the next level, I was thoroughly impressed, way more so than with any other defensive end in the conversion drills. And so Jonathan Newsome, for that reason and that reason alone, is on my all-combine squad because I feel like he had to make GMs take notice. If they didn't know he had the ability to do it before, they know it now. And now I feel like he's the guy that you got to give some extra attention to. And I think he might have risen his stock by being able to show the scouts that, hey, not only can I put my hand in the dirt and get after the quarterback, I can also stand up and play a little bit of linebacker if you need me to in a pinch as well. So Jonathan Newsome, for me, checks off as a defensive end on my all-combine squad. Look at defensive tackle. This one was easy for me. It was 2 guys that jumped off the page athletically as freaks in this draft. And it's Aaron Donald, 4'6", 40 out of Pitt. Are you kidding me? I mean, I really don't need to elaborate on Aaron Donald. What he did was he took himself from a guy that you considered drafting in the first round, maybe back half of the first round, early second, to middle of the first round. This guy's going to be the first defensive tackle taken off the board, no questions asked. That's the kind of monumental leap he had because of his production at the combine. I'm done talking about Aaron Donald, period. So you move on to my next defensive tackle, Anthony Johnson out of LSU. I looked at all the defensive tackles, Timmy Jernigan's, Lewis Nix, and I said, man, these guys are some beasts. But I looked at Anthony Johnson and how he was moving around and how he was showing the ability to change directions and the feet and everything that came with it. They call him the freak at LSU. I see why. I got sucked into the Anthony Johnson, the freak hoopla. I'm sold. Anthony Johnson, to me, stood out at the combine. I'm not saying he was the best, not saying he was the second best, but he stood out to me in ways that the other ones did not. And I think he made some GMs, some scouts, some head coaches take notice and say, hey, this is a guy that we want to maybe take another look at as possibly drafting him a little bit higher than maybe we thought we were going to be able to draft him before. So Anthony Johnson, for me, shot up the draft boards a little bit with his performance at the combine. You go on to my linebackers, Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack came in and solidified his spot as the first linebacker off the board. And he came out, he ran, he tested, he caught the football, you know, had some drops, but again, the tape doesn't lie, and he came out and reinforced that he's an athlete. He's an athletic guy that can make plays for you, put his hand in the dirt, stand up, move around, do some things. He's the number 1 linebacker off the draft board, and he solidified that at the combine. Hence, he's my number 1 linebacker. You look at the second linebacker, Jordy Tripp. You didn't see that one coming out of Montana. You did not see Jordy Tripp coming. But I tell you what, I was maybe as impressed with him as I was any linebacker at the combine. That's making a huge statement. I just talked about Khalil Mack. Return of the Mack. I've just talked about Khalil Mack. Now I'm telling you about Jordy Tripp. This guy is legit. All right. 6'3", 4'6", 40, 4'6", 40 if I'm not mistaken. Fluid athlete, back pedal, beautiful. Feet, beautiful. Hips, nasty and fluid. Jordy Tripp, check, 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 checked all of the boxes. I'm enamored with this guy. Eyes are on Jordy Tripp. He's on my all-combine team. I think he made GMs take another look and say, hey, we need to put the tape on to this guy and see what he brings to the table. Kevin Pierre-Louis out of Boston College. Quick twitch fiber athlete. Explosive. 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 To me, first of all, fastest linebacker at the combine, okay? And at 4'5", 340. So that's number 1. Number 2, one of the best benches at the combine. So you're combining speed and power. Power! Speed! You get both of those in a package. He's a slender guy with a slender frame that can move, but still carry his weight well at around 235 pounds or so. I'm intrigued. I told you, this is one of those guys I'll be watching and I'll be waiting to see where Kevin Pierre-Louis goes, because he impressed me in ways unfathomable at the combine. I just didn't see that guy with that frame doing what he did on the bench and in the 40. He impressed me. Now I want to see who's going to draft this guy and what kind of player he's going to be at the next level. Corners. Justin Gilbert. I told you, best corner in this draft, hands down. He came out and showed everybody in attendance, everybody watching at home, I'm the best corner in this draft. Enough said. You look at Jason Verrett. Here's a guy out of TCU at 5'9". Questions about his height? I don't care. The guy has all the physical tools necessary, minus the height. And again, I don't dock guys for height. You got the heart, you got the ability. You show me a guy with heart that doesn't care, that forgets at times that he's 5'9". And this guy has a 37-inch vertical, so it's not like he can't climb the ladder. You put a 6'1" receiver in front of him that's a little timid. He's going up and he's taking a football from him. You give me a guy with heart. You give me a guy with all the skill sets necessary to play the cornerback position. Forget about his height. That's why Brent Grimes has been able to shine, and he's about to get paid in free agency. That's why Antoine Winfield was one of the most respected corners when he played, because forget about his height. He would hit you in your mouth. You made a mistake. He'd make you pay for it. That's what Brent Grimes does. And so give me Jason Verrett out of TCU as my second corner on my all-combine team. And last but not least, safety position, Clinton Dix and Victor Hampton. That might be a little bit of a surprise to you. Let's start with Clinton Dix out of Alabama. I told you he was fluid. To me, if you ask me, number 1 safety in my estimation. If I had a little list, and I don't do lists, but if I had a little list, he'd be number 1 atop my safety list. I think this guy is extremely fluid as an athlete, can make plays, has range, can get from the middle portion of the field to the outside, the sideline, and I think he can cover a lot of space, more so than a guy like Calvin Pryor. And so for me, Clinton Dix is the man at the safety position. Hence, he's one of the safeties on my all-combine squad. And last but not least, Victor Hampton out of South Carolina. He's the enforcer for me. He's the little small 5'9" musclehead safety that's going to light you up if you come across the middle, but also in the same breath will pick the football off. He's, to me, a more burlier version of DJ Swearinger, another safety out of South Carolina that was drafted in the first round last year. And so, the second round last year by the Houston Texans. And so, to me, he's got all the intangibles, all the measurables, all the things you're looking for from a guy that can come in and start immediately at the safety position. I thought his back pedal was smooth and fluid. I thought he ran to the ball. I thought he caught the ball well. Transition was great. I like Victor Hampton. I like him a lot. So much so that he made my all-combine squad, because I think GMs, scouts, coaches, all alike had to go back and say, hey, we need to do some more research on this guy. No, he has some off-the-field issues. No, he had some trouble with Steve Spurrier at South Carolina. We need to go talk to some people and see what the deal is with this guy, because I like what I see. And I think he's a guy that I might want to pull the trigger on in the draft. So that is it. Your full combine coverage, days 1 through 4. I've been here every day breaking this thing down. I thank you for joining me. If you've joined me every single day, if not, I thank you for joining me today. And so that is your 2014 NFL Combine. If you've got an all-combine squad, I'd love to hear it. Send me your messages. Send me who you think is on your all-combine squad. I thank you for joining me here on the program. It happens in the National Football League, whether big or small. We cover it all here in the lab room. See you next time. I'm breaking down every single team in their off season, so look out for those videos as well. I'm churning them out, so you keep watching. Thank you for joining me. See you next time. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the lab room.